Hello, hello, and good morning, and welcome to episode 7 of Sit Down, Stand Up. Man, I am nailing that intro now. I'm here with my mighty mug of marketing, and we're going to be talking about I don't know what, because I've tried now. This is the first episode. I've done 6 episodes where as soon as I hit record, I don't touch it until I turn it off. I've actually tried 3 times to get this thing started. And part of the issue is what I call adaptability. The word I just came up with now. I didn't just come up with it, but it was something that got flagged in my brain, which is the needing to be able to read the room, read the circumstance, or just understand. Okay, there's something in me that wants to talk about something else other than what I'd planned to talk about. Of course, I've talked before. I've got the agenda planning. Now we've got this. We're going to talk about this on this episode. We're going to talk about this when I do stand up. I'm going to do these things and talk about these topics. And that's that. And then I've got the other side of me that's like very emotional and trying to. It's like, but there's people looking at me really weird. I don't think this is going well. Not really focusing on the material anymore and just more focused on reactions and all this other kind of stuff that gets in the way. And this guy's trying to say, okay, we need to adhere to the script. And this guy's going, but I don't have the script anymore. And there's like a third entity that kind of comes in and says, hey guys, we need to change things up a bit. You need to be more relaxed and you need to get your poo together. And the guy rarely shows up, this third party. But when he does, it's very noticeable. It sounds like there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in my head, but I think it's all just normal thoughts. It's just, this is how they manifest. But I have come to know that there is a significant gap of intelligence between my brain and the rest of me. Somehow my brain is very smart, but I am not. And I don't know how that works because there is a lot of stupid between here and here. So I'm not so my brain is like, it's operating at a very high level. It's understanding things that I'm not understanding. And then when I try to express those things that I don't quite understand, it doesn't work. But it's like, but it's my own brain. How is it my own brain is coming up with things that I cannot express properly? And I say that because during my stand-up, I set the stage, right? For the last time for what was going on. I'm in a venue. I don't even know what it was called. I don't know if it didn't serve food, so it's not a restaurant. It served alcohol, so it was a bar, but it wasn't like a typical bar. So I'm just going to call it a venue with the lime green seats and the kind of cafeteria vibe. Nice people, but really, really interesting people. And I do mean that in the most euphemistic way possible. It just was not it wasn't the situation that I was expecting to walk into. And it kind of got worse and worse as it went along. We had the rooster fighting gentleman, the Megadeth rooster fighting character. We had the mushroom man sitting next to me. It was a motley cadre of characters, really. But I did all this work to memorize my shtick, my 5.5 to 6 minutes of material, and I really refined it and curated it and got it down to exactly what I wanted to say. And I hit a wall about 1.5 minutes in. And instead, it was kind of like there was something in my brain saying, this is not working. Like, I know you've got another 4.5 minutes of material in this vein. This is not where you should be going with this. These people, I mean, granted, they're not going to respond favorably anyway, but you have a much better chance of connecting with them if you shift gears and do something a little bit different, talk about another topic, rather than just try to go down this one particular road. And so, as despondent as I was and disappointed as I was after the routine, at like 4:00 in the morning, I woke up and had this idea, adaptability, being adaptive. And so the idea is more to try to come up with a variety of topics and think about a variety of topics and a variety of experiences and kind of at least work out where you could go for the jokes or where the high points, what you need to hit, refresh the old memory as to what happened and find ways to package it up so that when you get in a situation where everybody's talking about sex and sex jokes and kind of crass things like that, you can either go, you know what, not my venue, I'm out, or you go, okay, I'm not going to necessarily do that, but I can talk about fart jokes. I mean, we're kind of on the same level there. It's very base. It doesn't require a lot of interaction. It's like, that's funny. Oh, sex. That's also funny. Like it just kind of works that way. So you got to adapt to the environment. And it's been a little bit of a struggle this morning because I'm in a state of unawakenedness. So you kind of you have undead, which I still don't quite understand, but the idea that you're not alive, but you're not actually dead, you are undead. So you are doing a semblance of things that living people do. So you're not inert. I guess that's a better word for it. You're not inert, but you are dead mentally. You're dead in every other way. And that's how I kind of feel. I didn't get enough sleep, and I tried to get a little bit more sleep, and that didn't work out for me. So I got this mishmash of not sleep. So I've kind of said, like, if you don't, some people, not everybody like this, but some people, if you need, like, let's say 7, for me, it's 7 hours, 7 hours of sleep. If I get at least 7, I'm good. If I get 7.5, not so good anymore. If I get 8, it's even worse, because it's like, once I hit that 7-hour threshold, my body's like, we're not waking up now. We're not waking up. Okay. I'm in it for the long hauls, and a long haul is at least 2 hours. So if I'm not getting 7 hours, I need 9 hours. And if I'm not getting 7 or 9, if I'm getting less than that, that can be a problem. It depends on, I don't know exactly what the sweet spot is, but there's an amount of sleep I can get that if I don't get any more beyond that, I'm okay for the rest of the day. I can kind of, I'm not really working off of fumes. It's like, I guess, a minimal sweet spot. I don't know how else to phrase it. But then if I get a little bit more than that or a little bit less than that, then I'm going to be groggy all day. It's a very complicated situation when it comes to sleeping. It's a little obnoxious. So I am currently in this unawakened state where I'm awake. I'm functioning as if I'm awake, but mentally everything is very much in a haze, and I don't know how to remedy that other than go back to sleep. But a lot of time when I try that, all I do is get more tired. I don't know. It's a spiral. So I'm not in the best mental place at the moment in terms of just being on top of things. And then I've tried to approach this from different ways, and I ended up having a miniature epiphany, which was nice. But then I followed it up. I was actually, I went off on a tangent, as I do, and I actually looked up something on Google while I was doing this, which is something I hadn't done before, but I thought it was kind of cool. I was looking up somebody that I learned in history, and I was talking about how, like, I never learned the right things when it comes to anything, really. So, like, in a history class, if you say read chapter 1, we're going to have a test on Friday. And that's not hypothetical. That actually happened, folks. All the time. You have to read a chapter, read 2 chapters, and then get tested on it. And let's say that chapter is 8 to 10 pages from a textbook, which is, as if you remember textbooks, they're very dense. So it's a lot of material to cover. And so you kind of just, you have to, like, and you don't know, especially at the beginning of the year, you don't know what your teacher wants you to focus on. Just says, read the chapter, I'm going to test you on it. And really, testing just means how much did you memorize? Memorize as much of this as you can, which doesn't really seem to have a lot of functionality, which would explain why most of my education I look at as completely worthless, because I retained very little of it long term, and the little bit that I did really has no relevance. So that's funny. You say I did a raspberry. You should laugh at that. But I always had a knack for memorizing the wrong things. The wrong things would fascinate me. Like, Bacon's Rebellion, I think, was one of the things or something. And so I read all about this. I got all fascinated in Bacon's Rebellion, and I knew the dates. I knew the people. I knew Mr. Bacon and what he did and why he was doing it, and thought his name sounded delicious, and memorized all these things about it. And that didn't even make the test. It was not a single question about Bacon's Rebellion. Or if there was, it was like Bacon's Rebellion and blah, blah, blah was different in what respect or something, which at least there, it's not just memorization. You have to compare and contrast, but I didn't know about the other one. I didn't read much about it because the other one didn't sound cool. It didn't have a name that was also a food. So all I knew was bacon. And I just had to take a guess. I was like, well, I know for a fact, this is what Bacon's Rebellion was about, but I don't know what this one is about. So you can usually eliminate like 2, and then you just have to guess. It's 50-50 between the remaining 2 options. So, but that's always been the way it's been. If you give me a choice or tell me to read something or to watch something, I will fixate. Something will fascinate me that is not considered relevant, or is just, it's not selected for critique or for expounding upon whether it's an exam or an essay or what have you. And that's the way it's always been. So I was talking about how that happened to me. My parents actually helped me with history. We were going over and I was trying to remember all these different names and everything. So they came up with ways to help remember the names. And one of them was Edmund Ruffin, the muffin maker. So I actually looked up who Edmund Ruffin was, because I didn't remember. All I remembered was something about muffins, apparently. And it turns out he was a plantation owner. He was with the Confederacy. He fought for secession based on wanting to continue slavery. And all these, but he was very big into soil, apparently. He did a lot of research into soil, into how to, and he was a big proponent of rotating crops so that you don't just like burn out, like growing tobacco or whatever. So if anything, he was more of a soil guy. I don't know where the muffin thing, other than that he was a plantation owner. And again, this is like third grade or something, second or third grade. So, you know, it was a very basic presentation. I don't even think I didn't remember learning that he was a Confederate or anything like that. It had to do with agriculture, I think. And so for some reason we came up with Edmund Ruffin, the Muffin Maker, to think of muffins, to think of growing stuff or whatever. But there was not a single question about Edmund Ruffin. And then there was Eli Whitney and the cotton gin. And I don't know, that wasn't actually any cool mnemonic device that I remembered. It was just Eli Whitney and the cotton gin. There was something about the cotton gin and Eli Whitney. I don't even remember what the cotton gin was, other than it was just a way to help pick cotton better, I think. I don't know. But again, really nothing about that on there. Or, you know, it was a throwaway line. Just, you know, all these, it was, yeah. Anyway. So I tend to learn not the wrong lesson, just a lesson that's not considered to be the one that I should be learning or the most important thing. But I did realize that because so initially my stand-up would start off with me saying something along the lines of, let's address the elephant in the room. Yes, I am 45 years old. Yes, I was born and raised in Northern Virginia. And yes, as you may have expected or guessed by now, I am in fact a virgin. And I think it works. It's kind of subversive. You know, you're thinking, okay, 45 years old, Northern Virginia. What should I be assuming about this fellow? Oh, he's a virgin. Well, that's kind of weird. And that's all I want is just that kind of laugh. Like, where's the correlation? There was another variation that was, I'm 45 years old. I was born and raised in Virginia. So some might say I'm a 45-year-old virgin yen. I'm also never had sex, so some would call me a 45-year-old virgin, and they'd be right. So, you know, just something like that to lean in. But here's the problem, folks. Here's the problem. Virgin isn't exactly something that is, first of all, it's not unweighted. It's not just an innocuous word. It does have a context to it. It has a lot of baggage with it. And it really isn't, for the people that would go to a club, that would go out, you know, whether you're talking about couples or families or anything, it's not something that's really in their realm of experience. And for a lot of people, it hasn't been relevant to them or a way of thinking in, like, you know, since they were like 16 or 17, hopefully not that young, but, you know, hey, so it's not exactly a common denominator. And when I read through my texts, my stand-up comedy texts, which is why I'm so successful today, there's two principles. And I think I mentioned this before, but two principles you need to adhere to. One, be authentic, be your true self. And two, be relatable, relate to people, meet people where they're at. And that was always a problem for me, because if I'm being authentic, I have very little in common actually with a lot of people. And so being authentic and connecting to people is very difficult. At the same time, if I try to connect with people, I'm not really being me, because that's not been my experience. All I'm doing is piggybacking off of other people's experience. So I kind of have to pick one and lean into it pretty heavily. The problem is, or what I noticed is that, or my epiphany was that people who don't have common experiences with everybody else, they don't lead off with that uncommon experience. They find something that could at least be something relatable initially. And then once people get to know them, they feel comfortable, their defenses come down, they're not clenched up anymore. Then they say stuff like, there was a comedian, I saw him on Dry Bar, I don't remember the guy's name, but I found him very funny. And it was like on a 35-minute set or 40-minute set, he, at about the 25, 30-minute mark, he mentioned that he was a vegan. And like, he wasn't preaching about it, wasn't lecturing. Most people don't. Most comedians know it's not really funny to lecture people. If anything, they have a great knack for getting people to tense up, because they're like, you know what's in the news today? They've been talking about the Roe versus Wade kind of thing, and people automatically, you can hear people clenching and people, oh gosh, and getting nervous, like, where does this guy going to end up at, and blah blah blah. He's like, look, I'm just one guy with one opinion, and it's not I know it's different for everybody. It's kind of polarizing, but for me personally, I just think we got to do something about the signage. Like both sides, they're not really putting together very creative things. Like if it really comes down to a battle of communicating the coolest ideas, we need some illustrations. There should be some pictures. Okay, maybe that wouldn't work for both sides, but you really got to try to sell the point. Like, I'm not saying that's not I don't know that anybody did that. I'm not even saying that's something you should do, but like, and then people relax because you're not talking about the actual subject. You're talking about signage. He's talking about something that's kind of related, but not really. And it's more nitpicking the signage part than it is taking a side. So the best comedians, I think, know how to do that. And there are people that say, no, I'm here to shine a light on things. But even that's a certain kind of comedian. That's not my personal favorite. Like, I don't even like to, when it comes to political stuff, it's very tedious for me. So for personally, I don't even want to hear people saying stuff that I agree with. If I'm watching for stand-up, if I'm watching a channel because they're doing a political commentary, that's fine. But if it's stand-up, I don't even want to hear you saying things that I believe, because I don't really find it funny. Because I know there's a whole other perspective out there that finds this like atrocious. Or now, ideally, we can all laugh at everything, but when they say it's funny because it's true, it means that they're pointing out or trying to point out something that is, that is amusing because there's a truth underneath of it. But that also gets into a problem when, you're going, okay, but that fundamental truth you're talking about, the little bit that you're mentioning that you're basing the funny part off of, that's actually not true. That's only true if you look at it this way. It devolves is my point. And so either way, I just rather people just make, and there's plenty of comedians that do both. You can get either one. I just gravitate towards folks who typically do that kind of thing. They'll address a quirky issue about a bigger issue, and maybe say a little something about it, or point out, hey, can we all just get along, or something along those lines. But by the point is, the gentleman who was a vegan didn't bring that up until later on. And I had a friend that said, she's just said outright, don't talk about being a virgin because people are going to think you're being judgmental. And so I agree to a degree. I don't think it's the right thing to lead off with, which is unfortunate because so far that is the thing I led off with, because it's about as authentic as you can get. It kind of sets the tone was my thought to a degree. But then again, it's like, okay, well, what tone does that set? That I'm going to be, I don't know. It just occurred to me to talk about something like that later on. Talk about something a little more contemporary, or like there are some things that I have in common with people, some experiences, or maybe not even that, just goofy experiences or fun experiences in general, which is really what I should be talking about here. But I mean, I remember. No, blanking. This is kind of like I'm actually experiencing right now what I experienced doing stand-up, where you just have like a blank slate, where you just can't think about any anecdotal stuff. I mean, I remember we did Outward Bound. I was able to become part of a. Let's see again. This doesn't feel like it's going to connect with people either. There was a charter class. We were part of the charter class of a leadership program that was being started by the president of the school that I went to, the university I went to, and it's 22 of us. And in order, like a team building exercise, we went to school a week early, and we went on this thing called Outward Bound, which is essentially a 3 or 4 day. I can't remember if it was 3. I think it was a 2 night, 3 day, 2 night, Chesapeake Bay adventure, where you start off by doing 2 days of sailing, and then you do like a ropes course, kind of team building, team trust type activity. And it sounds good on paper. It sounded amazing, but it wasn't. The first thing they had us do when we showed up, it was more like an outdoor, like you think of sailing, you think of like a yacht or like a nice sailing ship. Think of a glorified rowboat with a mast with the sail on it. That's what it was. It was a giant rowboat with like think of a Viking ship. Like they look really cool, but think about sleeping on one of those. Not quite so fun. And that's what we had, but it wasn't the size of a Viking boat. I think they were 30 foot long or something, and there were 11 of us plus 2 guides on each boat. It's like 13 people on a 30-foot boat. That's not a lot of room, like, for people. And the first thing they had us do was get all of our hygienical products, everything that we brought for the trip. Like, we were told to pack light, so we didn't pack a lot, but everything we were told, we had to put it in these like sealed bags and give them to them. And we were allowed to keep, I think, was it a toothbrush? I don't think we were allowed to keep our toothbrush. Like, deodorant wasn't allowed. There's no hair products. I think we were allowed to use. Nope, I don't remember. I actually hope we don't, because skipping ahead, we actually washed our silverware in the Chesapeake Bay, which wouldn't have been maybe as bad, except for like how many times we were pooping and peeing off the side of the boat. To be fair, we actually didn't. The pooping went into a bucket. We didn't actually poop into the water, but we're peeing into the water. Like that's where you go. That's where you have to. You're in the middle of the Chesapeake Bay. Like, where are you going to go? So it was kind of weird, and just understanding. I mean, let's face it, folks, the ocean is the world's biggest toilet bowl. It really is. Everything that lives there poops there and eats there. And humans add to that in various ways. Obviously, we've got, oil spills and everything, but then we just have, people go to the, like, when I worked at a pool, we had to empty the entire pool if somebody like pooped in it. Which, it made sense, even though you got all that chlorine in there, you don't want feces and fecal matter and people getting sick from that and suing and everything. So if a little kid is in the pool and craps his diaper and it gets out or whatever, you got to empty the pool. But we don't do that with the ocean. It just circulates and gets eaten by lobsters and crabs and other things that feed off of the crap in the ocean. And then we eat the crabs and the lobsters. And it's a circle of life. It is a wonderful circle of life. I'd love to hear the Little Mermaid version of that. But, well, I guess it wouldn't be Little Mermaid because I don't even know what they eat. They demon, like, you notice in Little Mermaid, the only creature that doesn't talk is the shark. And it's like, but none of, all of those creatures, like, they all eat each other. So they make it sound like it's all fun and everything's better down where it's wetter under the sea. But it's like, if you look and you go, okay, well, that actually preys on that and that preys on this. But the only obvious predator, obviously, is the dark, scary shark that doesn't sing or talk for some reason. Everything else does. The octopus plays instruments, but all the shark does is eat things. It's a very insipid, really, way of framing everything. But it's like, okay, what is your ecosystem? What do you guys eat? Do you just eat kelp and plankton? I guarantee you, Triton does not get guns like that. Does not get abs and everything just by eating sea kelp. Like, that's not a feasible thing to consider. I understand he's not a god. He's not Poseidon. He's got a trident, but aside from the trident, you really don't see, other than his physique, doesn't really seem to have any powers per se. He's just the king. So I just don't think you get to be that strong eating sea kelp. So I don't know where they're supposed to get their sustenance from. We don't get to discuss that. We demonize the humans, for eating seafood, but everybody is seafood down under the sea. But yeah, the circle of life. So, the humans poop in the water and pee in the water, and the lobsters and the crabs, they eat the poop, and then the people eat the creatures that ate the poop, and so wonderful circle of life. It's kind of disturbing. See, we can all relate to that. Who wouldn't want to start off with that? Just talking about eating creatures that eat poop and how we contribute to that in our own way. But I don't know. Anyway. It was an adventure, and I might go into detail, but that's something that I haven't really thought much about in recent years. I actually wrote a whole essay on it that was kind of just fun. It was, I don't remember what it was called now. But yeah, it was all about the adventure that it was, what we all thought we were getting into and what it ended up being. But yeah, we got on there. We had almost no possessions. We were not allowed to really bring anything. We had one change of clothes, or not even a change of clothes, really. It was like you could have shorts and like put on a pair of like windbreaker pants on over it, or jeans if you wanted to, but it wasn't like you were going to be changing your clothes. You lived in whatever you brought to wear. I got seasick. That was fun. I was the only one, I guess, which is nice. And their solution was, you got to stay hydrated, and you got to try to eat. So the solution was keep drinking water and keep eating crackers and keep throwing up all day long. And then eventually at the end of that first day, we were still, we never got it. We didn't get on land. We just kind of hung out in the water, but it wasn't quite as bad. I got some Dramamine, and that got me straightened out. So the second day was infinitely better for me than the first one, but I spent most of the day puking over the side of the boat. But it was, as I said, glorified rowboats. So we learned how to sail. We learned about jibbing and tacking and all that stuff. I was leaned over the side, so I wasn't learning very much at that point. But then at night we had these like little bed rolls. They're about this thick, and we didn't have pillows. We weren't allowed to bring any of that stuff. You could take off your pants and bunch them up and put your head on there. We laid down the oars to cover the gaps between the boards, and we laid the oars this way, and we slept this way. And again, 13 people on a 30-foot boat, we were pretty much laying on top of each other, and we had to have a watch. There were two of us, and you had a 3-hour watch, or was it a 2-hour watch? I think it was a 2-hour watch. Yeah, we had enough people. It was a 2-hour watch. But so you were just up with another person, just sitting on the stern of the boat, which is the back of the boat. I did learn that, I think. No, the stern is the front. No, the bow is the front. I don't know. Starboard is right. And whatever the other one is left. Starboard. I don't know. I was just tongue on the starboard side, apparently. But yeah, it was so we learned all that kind of stuff. We did some very, very basic food prep, and we washed our forks and our plates and our whatever dishes we had in the water that we had just earlier been peeing in and everything. Now, granted, we were moving, so it wasn't like literally there, but it's just the idea, the psychological aspect of it. But then, yeah, you think about it, it's like, well, everything else is doing their business in the water, so why can't we? That said, we had a bucket for, as I said, we peed over the side, but we had a bucket for the poop that we would, I think, get emptied on shore somewhere. I don't know. We only have one person. Everybody else, they're psychologically somehow they connected with their body, and they were like, no, we're not doing this. Like, first of all, we were burning off almost everything that we ate because we were doing a lot of rowing and a lot of like swimming and stuff. So there wasn't a whole lot of extra stuff that was undigested and unused. But only our older, I think she was like in her 50s, late 40s, early 50s at the time. One of the leadership people, the faculty, was one time had some business in the bucket. Everybody else, none of us, we waited till we got on land, and then there was like a line for the 3 porta potties that were there, and we're all there on our sea legs, can't stand up straight, toppling over, falling over each other, bowels about to burst because everybody had been holding it in, voluntarily or otherwise, for 72 hours. It was a great time. It was the best of times. It was the worst of times. But it was, we had people that thought we were going on a luxury yacht. Like, they showed up, this one girl showed up, manicured nails, jewelry, like gorgeous, just completely decked out. I was like, all that's got to go. And then when we saw the boats that we were going to get into, I was like, wait, what? Like, I wasn't thinking yacht, but I was thinking, sailing. Like, Gilligan's Island, for crying out loud, the Minnow would have been a luxury cruiser compared to what we were on. But yeah, it was rough. We had to swim out to an island, and one guy almost drowned because he was trying to swim with his shoes on, and he just got way down and tired out. And I don't know. It was a crazy time. We like in the morning when we got up, they blew whistles to wake us up. I think it was 4:30 or 5. The sun wasn't up yet, and we had to wake up by getting in the water, and there were jellyfish in the water, so a lot of us got stung. Now, they weren't. I guess, I don't know if Chesapeake Bay jellyfish aren't as bad, but we didn't get stung too terrible. And for those of us who kept our long pants on, I wasn't wearing jeans. I was wearing like a pair of like sport windbreaker things. You had like little zippers at the ankle. So I didn't get zapped as badly. We got some other people that had like red welts on their legs and everything. But yeah, it was just an interesting adventure. But there's definitely ways to phrase things that go into a little bit more depth and make it a little more funny. But even that's not necessarily relatable, but it's not ostracizing is my point. So I did learn through my second failed attempt as I was going through this, that, yeah, probably not a good idea to lead with the most ostracizing thing, or the thing that the fewest people can relate to or can understand. Build up the rapport first. Let people get comfortable with you, And then you can lay on some of this stuff because you're a goofball. You're a funny guy. You're not there to preach to them. You're not there to lecture them. You're not there to make them feel bad. They already know you. They like you. Hopefully, you've made them laugh. You're kind of that's a great way to build rapport. It's a great way to feel like you really know somebody. You get people laughing. It makes them feel comfortable. And yeah, so I wouldn't say I taught myself a lesson, but I took a lesson that somebody else mentioned that I think was not necessarily the right lesson, but it got me closer. And then realizing, yeah, it's better to start off, try to find something more in common, and then lead into it instead of using that as kind of like a shock factor. So yeah, so here's the learning stuff. That's what this whole thing is about. And yeah, I will see you on the next one. Thanks so much for watching.